In this video, I'm going to cover some updates we've made to our version 4.3 of our ESS portal application to include an update to Font Awesome. Font Awesome recently came out with a new version, version 5, and the service portal natively brings in, I think, 4.2, and so there's some differences in Font Awesome 5 that we wanted to incorporate into our application, so I want to highlight what those are. So first of all, I want to hit on the Font Awesome site. There's really two ways to load Font Awesome. One is this SVG with JavaScript, which basically looks on your page and takes any of your icons, converts them to SVG kind of as it loads. We're really not using this. I'll show where we are using some of those features. We're using the Font Awesomes with CSS, which basically loads in, similar to the existing version 4, kind of a CSS file that allows you, whenever it sees the icon tags, it'll kind of replace those and load them up with the fonts, or the icons, that the web fonts. So one thing I want to highlight as part of this is those upgrading the application from 4.1, 4.2, or other previous versions of our application to 4.3. Some of the things to be aware of is we'll be moving basically from version 4 of Font Awesome to version 5. And the main thing I want to highlight, there's two things I want to highlight with this. One is the prefixes for the icons have changed. By default, FAS or FA, which is the kind of legacy icon or prefix for the icon, it was all FA before. This is kind of now the standard, though there are some icons that, to get the inverse look and feel of them, you prefix them with FAR. For the ones that are brands like Twitter or Windows, you prefix those with FAB. So you have to kind of define the icons a little differently. Further, you'll notice a number of the legacy icons, some of the names have changed. So if you're using some of these icons before, what they're going to do is they're going to show up as blank on the page if you continue to use bell/o as an example. So what this is basically articulating is you need to change this to bell/, and then you change it to the prefix of far instead of FA to get that kind of open or kind of inverse kind of look and feel of that icon. So that's the starting point. So now it's, as far as our application goes, where we're loading Font Awesome 5, we have in our application what's called the kind of core components widget, which you basically load as part of the header of all of our themes. So it's in essence present globally in our application, and really where we go to load global dependencies that we want to make sure are available to all of our kind of widgets and application as a whole. So you'll see as part of here, one of our global dependencies now that's loaded is this Font Awesome 5. As highlighted, this is basically a CSS file. There is another CSS file we've added as part of our application, which is FA5 fixes. So if there's some styles or things that have adjusted as part of that, this is where you can go to make those particular adjustments. Okay, so some of the things that we'll now see, so if I go to, like, for example, navigation tiles, if we pull up one of these, like approvals, you'll see the icon FA check square. Now there's no prefix here of FAS, FA, or FAR defined on this particular one. So by default, if you don't put the prefix of FAS, FAR, or FAB in terms of these icon attributes and properties, it's going to assume the default of FA or FAS. Now what you can find is if I do a search for, let's say icon contains FAR, I can find one of these like this one. So we have this FA comment, which has now been replaced, has a FAR, which gives you that open. So this used to be FA-comment-O. This has been replaced with FARs. This is kind of the way you would define kind of putting that special prefix on there if need be, or the or the brand prefix. So the same thing occurs if I were to look at, say, our objects here. If I go to the SharePoint card object record, you'll see a FAB space FA Windows. And so this is, again, prefixing this with FAB to denote, whereas a lot of these other ones just have FA shopping carts that uses the FA or the FA or FAS prefix as the default. So let's load our portal just to kind of show you what Font Awesome 5 kind of looks like in action. So the icons aren't going to be dramatically different than what you saw in the past. So, but in essence, we have a new library that we can make use of, and an additional set of icons that we can kind of pick and choose from. which by default, or by the way, I should also mention, if you go out to the Font Awesome site, you go to the icons, they've got a full library where you can look for these. The things you want to look for are the free ones, so we're not using the pro license, but the free. The ones that are FAS would be the solid, the ones FAR, the regular. Brands are brands, but in essence, you can look for something like, Bell, right? If I want to look for the solid, it'll just show me the solid ones that have Bell, right? The ones that have regular, you can see this is the Bell that's solid, the one that's kind of empty would be what used to be kind of Bell O, right? So the other thing I want to highlight with this, so any of these icons, as noted, if you were to put in the wrong kind of icon than what is new, so as I mentioned before, you could have something like Bell-O. If you put something like, if you have one of these icons that doesn't exist, you're going to get one of these kind of empty kind of icon, kind of look and feel kind of elements. The other thing I want to highlight, one of the things that we're making use of on a few of these pages with the new Font Awesome is these icons do have some additional attributes you can apply to them to make them rotate, flip, etc. So for example, this one, the icon, we wanted to make sure this little search icon was in the same kind of direction as the wrench that's right above it. So you'll see we did a flip horizontal, whereas by default, it was looking like this. So the other thing to highlight with this is you can also use things like, there's an FA rotate, say 100 or 270 degrees. Right, so you can in essence use this way to flip things around to create your own kind of unique icons based off of those kind of activities. So you'll see up in the header here, you've got these, what these are considered are layered icons. So this is a case where we are actually using, on the Font Awesome side, there is a, as I mentioned, the SVG with JavaScript. This is a case where we are using that aspect of it. And I want to show kind of how we're doing this. So what you have in this Font Awesome library is you can do what are called these layers. So you can take any number of of Font Awesome icons, you can kind of meld them or merge them together. Now, a lot of times what we're doing with this in this particular theme is we're taking one of the icons and we're adding kind of a counter to the top right. So that's one aspect of the layering, is layering some text or a counter icon onto the right. But there are cases where you can take like our favorites icon that's in this header, which kind of looks like this, where it's a bookmark with a heart in the middle of it. Right, this one is layered two different icons together, and as a way to create that. Then you can also take another case here where we have our notifications are two icons layered together, the certificate and an exclamation point, which gives you this kind of certificate outline, exclamation point in the middle, and also a counter on the top. So that's kind of a case where you're doing three different kind of layers to create one kind of icon. Now what I want to highlight with this is you'll see in each one of these items there's a top level class being added here for svg.convert. Now what we did is in essence for this theme we've loaded up the SVG conversion, but we didn't want it to go and create SVGs for all the icons. So instead what we did is we allowed this class to be kind of the driver. So if you look at the client side script of this particular widget, and you search for SVG, oops, the right place. Search for svg.convert. What you'll find is there's some code here on load of this particular widget that's going to look for all of those elements that have svg convert, kind of query those nodes, and there's in essence a Font Awesome API library that we're calling to say go ahead and target these specific items to convert them to SVGs. So kind of selectively using that JavaScript SVG feature to convert these items into that output, that layered output. And so we're also doing this, the other theme just to highlight that we're doing this on as well, and this will kind of complete what I want to cover, is if we go to the Hitchcock theme, the announcements widget that's on the kind of right over here. So here's what I wanted to show. This announcements widget over here on the right has a this calendar icon is basically another one of those layered icons where you're layering text on top of that calendar Font Awesome, and same thing happening there in terms of the SVG convert. So hope this is helpful in seeing kind of the updates we've made to incorporate Font Awesome 5 as a platform level architecture, as well as how we're kind of conditionally loading in the conversion to SVG for kind of selective places where we want to use some of those new SVG features. Hope this is helpful. Thank you.